YouTube. Just punch in One News PH, and hopefully you will get to join us this morning and in the days to come. As I mentioned, it's July 10, 2020, Friday na naman po. And as we say, thank God we made it to another Friday. Hopefully enjoy this weekend again, because nowadays it's no longer about party. It's about actually making it alive, healthy, and most importantly, happy. Now, bago po natin umpisa ng ating programa, I just want to tell you a little story because, stories kind of perk up days. And yesterday afternoon, I got a phone call from Mayor Alfred Romualdez. And, about on an average, once a week, tatawag siya, or maybe once a month, tatawag ako. And just to catch up, ever since we hooked up during Yolanda. Now, yesterday, the mayor called me and said, Cito, may chismis ako sa'yo. And when he says chismis, it's his way of saying, we haven't verified it, but we've picked it up. So sabi ko, okay, ano chismis mo? Sabi niya, pare, doon pala sa Cebu, kanya kumakalat yung COVID, kasi may mga taong ninenegosyo. And I said, what do you mean ninenegosyo? How can people make a business out of COVID infections? And apparently, according to Mayor Romualdez, may mga tao pong umiikot dyan sa Cebu City and province of Cebu na namimili ng blood plasma sa mga taong na-infect na o yung asymptomatic ng COVID-19. They go around, they find out who were infected, sino yung mga nagkasakit at gumaling, at siguro may bit silang nurse at namimili sila ng blood plasma. Yun naman po kasi, the blood plasma in turn is used by rich patients. I don't know how true it was because sabi nga ni Mayor Alfred, chismis, kino-confirm pa nila, that even foreigners are buying it. So we don't really know. But yesterday, he was telling me that it sold anywhere from 10,000 to 80,000. And sabi ko, Alfred, baka kalokohan na yan. Parang sobrang, ano yan, tales of Dracula. And he said, well, Cito, it's not really far-fetched considering that, there are also a lot of buyers for organs. Yung mga namimili ng kidney, namimili ng kung ano-anong piyesa ng katawan. So we just kind of, I just kind of look, Alfred, I don't want to go there. But lo and behold, last night on GMA 7, they actually featured the story, and some authorities are already tracking down, hunting down these people na namimili ng blood plasma. So medyo, I just wanted to share because in this time of COVID, talagang lahat po ng klaseng kwento na parang hindi ka panipaniwala, mababalitaan natin. Like for instance, for the last 2 days, I've been talking about the comments of San Miguel Corporation COO Ramon Ang, when he said that when he criticized private individuals, businesses, or even NGOs na pinagmamayabang yung kanilang COVID testing, pero pinagkikitahan naman yung COVID testing. Ramonang was, pointing out that COVID testing should not be the basis for profit. We should test for free kung pwede, and kung hindi kaya ng gobyerno, we should test without profit. Ayan na po, no? Meron pong mga walang hiya. That's as far as I'll go because kung papakawalan ko po itong bibig ko, baka hindi nyo na sabihin mabait ako or matino ako. May mga walang hiya, shameless people who actually twisted the statement of Mr. Ang and made it appear that he was actually criticizing government when in fact he was not. Napilitan na nga si Ramon ang mag-issue ng statement na hindi niya pinatuturingan, he was never accusing government nor criticizing government regarding COVID testing. In fact, when he said that, no, none other than Secretary Vince Dizon and Secretary Carlito Galvez were in the audience. So bakit niya babasusin? And I know Ramon Ang personally, that's not in his character. The sad part is that some people twisted the statement, issued, put it on Facebook and put a different slant to the story. Yan po ang problema sa Facebook. May mga taong walang magawa, walang katuturan o kaya walang karapatan, maglalabas na lang ng storya, gagamit yung picture ni ganito, picture ni ganon, palalabasin na yun ang sinabi pero hindi naman. So, but here's an angle that I just want to throw out there kasi kung minsan nangyayari po dito sa Pilipinas, nag-aaway daw yung dilaw, yung dilawan at saka yung mga Duterte o Dutards. Posible, it is possible that some people want to make it appear like that. But in fact, it is possible that these people are actually trolls or clones o businessmen or profiteers na pinapalabas na political para lang hindi matira yung ginagawa nilang pinagkikitahan ang COVID testing. Please be smart. My brother just texted me earlier na may nagpakita raw sa kanya ng picture ko na naka-Amerikana pero naka-shorts at saka naka-chinelas. God knows I have never worn shorts during the program. I have worn suits and slacks but never shorts. That to me is unacceptable. So when he told me that he saw that photo, sabi ko, yan, fake news. So in any case, I just want to bring it out there for all of you. Please have wisdom, discretion, and caution doon sa binabasa ninyo at pinapasa ninyo, especially on social media. Because we are fighting a war. We are fighting a war of COVID-19. Ito na po yung world war ng ating henerasyon na hindi na nakita ng ating mga magulang. Kung dito sa world war na ito, magkakaroon pa tayo ng world war na malalansi tayo, mabobola o maloloko tayo, talo na. So in any case, please have judgment, wisdom, prudence, and discretion. In any case, let's go to the news. What's our program today? Well, it's actually all about ABS-CBN. Ayan po, dahil sa araw na ito, magbobotohan na raw sa Kongreso kung pass o fail yung ABS-CBN franchise. Now we will interview Congressman Boying Remulla, 7th District of Cavite. Siya po yung lumalabas na nagiging poster boy na talagang ginisa yung ABS-CBN at kinwestiyon at challenge. At si Congressman Lito Atienza ng BUHAY Party-list na tumatayo naman na parang defender of the faith for ABS-CBN. I'm just using terms. No? Hindi naman po talagang totoong ganun na lang. We will also interview Associate Professor Danilo Arao, UP Diliman, Department of Journalism, and Attorney Tony Viña, former Dean Ateneo School of Government. So abangan niyo po yan, and I will simply allow them to speak their views. Hindi po natin sila pag-aawayin. Hindi po kami naniniwala yun sa away-away dito sa agenda. Gusto natin magkaalaman ano yung agenda nila. In any case, let's go to the headlines of the Philippine Star. Here are the stories from the front page of the Philippine Star. Starting today, couples can ride together on motorcycles as long as they comply with minimum health standards and use body shields, says Malacanang Palace. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año also clarified that this applies to couples who are married as well as those living in the same household. Excuse me. As such, couples should always bring their IDs or identification cards so they can show that they have the same last name or the same address. The proposal will follow the prototype shield proposed by Governor Arthur Yap, which will prevent direct physical contact between driver and passenger. The government also makes it clear that this new rule will not cover motorcycle hailing apps like Angkas and Joyride or Habal Habal. Still news about enforcing health protocols. Secretary Anyo said he wants more aggressive, localized lockdowns in barangays. Anyo said that with the easing of quarantine restrictions, localized lockdowns will allow barangays to stem community transmission. The DILG chief added that local governments could take the initiative and implement lockdowns even with just one confirmed case in their localities down to the street by street level. Over 51,000 cases of COVID-19 have been recorded in the country with more than 1,000 deaths. Meanwhile, as we await word from the World Health Organization on whether COVID-19 is actually airborne, Malacanang Palace once again reminds the public to wear a mask. Wear your face mask, hand sanitize, observe social distancing. Finally, the House of Representatives is expected to cast their votes on the franchise renewal of ABS-CBN. Over 90 members of the House panels are slated to vote on the renewal. Yesterday, the lower chamber concluded its hearings on this issue and have formed a technical working group to draft recommendations on the franchise of the media giant. We will talk with Congressman Boying Remulla and Lito Atienza, journalism professor Danilo Arao, and lawyer Tony Viña about the matter. Ayan na po, natapos na yung ating balita. Doon lang dun sa balita na ano yun, riding in tandem. Ano ba yung sinabi? Government allows back riding for couples. Okay, ayan. Ipakita natin ng maigi yung picture. Ayan, back riding for couples. Yan po ang Philippine Star. And just a comment on that story. Kasi I think the shield was originally intended for, habal-habal, angkas, etc. Pero kung mag-asawa naman kayo, at mag-ama, mag-ina, whatever, magkabahay, magkasamang bahay, parang ba't kailangan pa ng shield? Sa bahay nga, wala nga body shield eh. In any case, just pointing that out, we're not trying to criticize government. We're just trying to correct the misalignment. We are for the body shield. If you're talking commercial, pero if you're talking husband and wife, parang why? Why do you even need that? In any case, let's go to our first interview. Let's speak with Associate Professor from UP Diliman, Department of Journalism, our friend Danilo Arao. Professor Dan, good morning sa imo.
Yeah, magandang umaga rin po sa inyo, Cito, at sa lahat po ng mga tagapanood. Good morning.
Okay, I don't know if this is the moment of truth, pero ang bali-balita kasi magbobotohan na raw sa Kongreso para sa ABS-CBN franchise. Kaya lang nawawa ko kasi if they're supposed to be voting on the franchise this morning, how come there's still a need for a technical working group to submit recommendations? What do you know about this situation?
From what I know, you're right. There is a technical working group composed of 3 legislators, and there are supposed to be recommendations. And the date of the voting, you're right, it may be done today, but it may be set at a later time. So anything can happen between now and the next few days. So we don't know yet.
Well, do you think Congress has done enough hearings on the matter? Kasi some people were expecting, naku, pipigain pa yung Channel 2, naku, hahaba pa yan. Tapos biglang, okay, tapos na, 12 hearings and that's it. Do you believe that they have sufficiently covered and investigated the matter?
In social science research, we have a saying, it's quality over quantity. So just because we've had 12 hearings spanning 8 hours or even well into the night, we have a situation, Cito, where there should have been more discussions regarding pertinent violations, alleged violations of the franchise. What we get would be long-winded speeches and long-winded discussions on issues that have been asked and answered already, not just by ABS-CBN, but many of the invited resource persons.
Mm.
So for me, as a taxpayer, as a journalist, and as a teacher, I'm
Mm.
quite disappointed with how the hearings went through. It would appear that ABS-CBN is being singled out for transgressions that would be quite alleged transgressions that you could address to other news media organizations as well.
Yeah, but if you had been a congressman or from the outsider looking in or speaking into the situation, what were the issues that would have been of interest to you as a professor, as a social scientist, as a journalist?
Okay, let's talk about the last hearing. It's all about media bias. So I was very interested, most especially since I'm doing my dissertation on journalism and culture of impunity, to get
Mhm.
insight from legislators regarding what they think of bias and how the media would affect them as sources
Mhm.
of information. So, of course, to be fair, we got personal insights, but these personal insights are essentially personal gripes against ABS-CBN, and they seem to have a mistaken notion of what bias is, of what balanced reporting should be. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm quite alarmed when they said that there should be equal airtime or equal space
Mhm.
for different sides of the issue. I mean, you don't do that. For a 10-minute program, you don't give 5 minutes to the pro side and 5 minutes to the anti side. It's more quality over quantity, and it's not as if we're pitting experts against idiots. It's experts versus experts,
Mhm.
depending on which side you're on, and that's quite alarming for me. Now, pertaining to the franchise, the question should be very, very simple. Does ABS-CBN have an application for franchise? And number two, are there other applicants to the franchise? Are there any groups? Are there any companies that would be telling Congress that no, ABS-CBN does not deserve this. We have an application for for franchise. We can do a better job than ABS-CBN, so please hear us out. We
Mhm.
don't have that situation right now, and that would partly explain, Cito, why for the other news media organizations, it has been generally smooth sailing insofar as their franchise applications would be concerned, because it's not as if media content or media ownership or even citizenship of certain media owners would be discussed during the hearings.
Well, I can appreciate the citizenship issue kasi nga naman baka lang, no? But
Mhm.
more importantly, I think you raise a valuable insight, yung dapat na pinag-usapan or what should have been tackled. The many members of Congress had their view or notion of what fair and balanced reporting is all about. So clearly, even our members of Congress need to re-educate themselves. I think we're all suffering from that as a culture. I think parang because of social media, internet, and politics, pati na itong mga troll culture, na naiba na yung notion ng fairness, balancing, etc. So, yeah, but unfortunately, even in the hearings, you're saying na gano'n na rin ang lumabas. Imbis na investigasyon at hearing, labasan na ng sama ng loob.
Exactly. So it's as if it's a new episode of MMK or Magpakailanman because of the personal gripes that went through the hearings. And to talk about Dengvaksha for more than 1.5 hours, and then to have it repeated over and over throughout the night, I mean, it's quite exasperating. And
Mm.
even I should have tuned in for the most part. I admit I had to tune out every now and then because I want to take care of my own mental health when I
Mm.
realized that there is no more substantive discussions on the issue. So that's
Okay.
very, very disappointing.
Professor, what? Associate Professor, Arao ba o Arao? Arao.
Araw, as
Arao,
in
okay.
sun, araw.
Okay, Arao, okay. Now, Prof, Ano ba talaga? What do you define as substantive issues?
Okay, substantive in relation to the franchise renewal issue would be to cite the pertinent provisions of the Republic Act granting the franchise of ABS-CBN from 1995 to 2020, and then
Mm.
trying to find out whether or not there are actually violations. For example, pertinent provisions on public interest. I mean, there are valid questions regarding the use of the frequency. But
Mm.
to keep on insisting that one frequency equals one channel would show not just ignorance of journalism, but ignorance of technological development, because we are all aware that from 1995 to 2020, we saw exponential growth insofar as technology is concerned. From
Mm.
analog, we've gone digital, although I understand that in the Philippines, we're way behind other
Mhm.
countries in terms of digital technology. But still, we already have SD and HD channels, which can fit into one particular frequency. In other words, there can be several channels for one frequency. But
Yeah,
still, there are
but
certain. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, but Dan, whose fault is that? Hindi ba kasalanan yan ng NTC? Na, kasi if I'm going to take a different position, I would say, hindi, kasi ang nangyari, inatado nila yung kanilang franchise, hiniwa-hiwalay nila, tapos ninegosyo nila, etc. But that's of course normal for any business or any company to want to maximize their business. But whose fault is that? Shouldn't Congress have gone after the NTC?
Yes, definitely. They should have gone after NTC. And actually, my position here is quite simple. If
Mhm.
something has been asked and answered already, why do you need to raise it again? I mean, that's a simple question. During the summation yesterday, these things had been repeated over and over. We're not just talking about one frequency, one channel claim, which is false, but also the citizenship issue. It has been
Mm.
established and it's on public record that Gabby Lopez is a dual citizen.
Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
From a trolling point of view, you would say that is 100% Filipino and 100% American. You can argue along that line, but still, insofar as constitutional limitations would be concerned in terms of media ownership, a dual citizen may still own a news media organization. Whether it's right or wrong, that would be for Congress to enact later on. But
Pero,
for now, it
yeah.
is allowed. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hindi ba publicly listed company ang ABS-CBN? Di ba may shares yan? Kasi parang lahat na focus na lang Lopez, 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 and you know, I
Exactly.
for transparency purpose, no, and just to be clear about it, I worked with ABS-CBN for 7 years. And I think 7 years was enough for me to understand how that organization works and how people there actually function. Now, ang pagkaintindi ko, ABS-CBN is a publicly listed company.
Yes.
Bakit ang tinarget yung Lopez ownership? Bakit? Ano ba sila? 90% owner ba sila? Etc. Hindi ba less than 50% sila?
Exactly. It's part of well, ABS-CBN opened up its shares and it has provided, from what I understand, its initial public offering a long time ago. And
Mm.
Gabby Lopez has not been hands-on, from what I understand, for quite some time because of his age. That's why the CEO right now is relatively younger. So
Mm.
you're right. Lopez has been unfairly targeted, unfortunately speaking. But more than
Actually, I
go
know
ahead.
that, Dan. I know that, Dan. Kasi nung napapagkwentuhan nga namin ng mga ibang tiga-ABS-CBN, sabi ko, ano na ba nangyari kay Gabi? Ay, naku, retired na yon. Nag-yoga na lang yon at saka nagpipilates.
Exactly,
So sabi ko,
exactly.
oh,
And going back to the issue of ownership,
yeah.
Cito, another thing that cropped up would be the use of PDRs, or Philippine Depositary Receipts, which incidentally was used also against Rappler. There is a notion that PDRs translate to foreign ownership of media, but if you look at the website of the Philippine Stock Exchange, it's clear there that PDRs should not be misconstrued as ownership, but rather as shares or dividends. as
Hmm.
shares from where you can get dividends. And
Yeah.
if it's really illegal for any news media organization or any entity which has strict 100% Filipino ownership to have foreign investments through PDRs, then it should have been disallowed by the government from the very start. And again, I wish to put on record for those who may not be aware, other news media organizations aside from Rappler and ABS-CBN have actually PDRs, but these were not used against certain news media organizations when their franchise was up for renewal.
Naku, pwede ba, Dan, wag mo na silang bigyan ng bala. Baka pati yung iba dyan, mabaril pa. In any case,
Okay.
no. But going back, in all seriousness though, ano ba dapat ang pinag-usapan? Okay, pinoint out mo, dapat ang pinag-usapan related to the issuance of the franchise, related to the technicalities and technology. Okay, given yun, SOP yun. But in terms of being a media unit, kasi parang naging issue pa yung content na may nagsabi. I
Mm-mm.
don't know if it was Boeing, Remulla or Marcoleta who said na hindi dapat siguro babae yata yun, congresswoman nagsabi na hindi dapat wag na muna kayong mag-news. Tigil niyo na muna yung news kasi napaka-bias naman ng news nyo. Mag-concentrate na lang kayo sa entertainment, drama, and sports. Now, I mean, let's pursue that, no? In the Philippines, should we be looking into the type of content? Kasi, Professor, ako naman, me personally, I've always said, let's get away from the violence and the idiocy. Let's go to more useful information, news you can use, programs that will teach you, parang BBC2 na may how to reconstruct your house, how to do gardening, etc. Yung parang functional and useful. Ano ang masasabi mo regarding the missed opportunity to discuss content in Philippine media?
Well, discussion of content would be most welcome, but it's not as if Congress should regulate media content. Now, when
Mm.
Representative Mike Defensor said something to the effect that news and current affairs of ABS-CBN should be temporarily stopped while hearings are ongoing, or in whatever context he may have said it, that's actually interfering with content. When the NTC issued an alias cease and desist order against ABS-CBN from its block time arrangement with Amcara, Channel 43, it's again regulation of content, which is very, very dangerous. So there's reason to worry about certain congressional interventions, but the NTC intervention most recently filed against the ABS-CBN through an alias CDO, that's also dangerous as well because we're now talking of content. The chilling message that's being sent by NTC is that from now on, we can tell you if your block time arrangement is acceptable or not to the government. I mean,
Mm.
again, it goes on record that ABS-CBN used to have 49% share of Amcara, but now they've divested in 2019. So right now, Amcara is a totally different company. So if ABS-CBN wants to have a block time arrangement with another company for the time
Mm.
being that they're not allowed to operate, then that should be their prerogative. But right now, even the NTC says that no, you cannot do that. And you have certain congressional leaders saying that Amcara is just a dummy corporation. So where do
Mm.
you get that kind of speculation that it's a dummy corporation? Because if you look at the legal aspect of Amcara, it's technically owned by a different company. So right now we are in that situation. It's ironic that you have congressional leaders saying that ABS-CBN should follow the law, and yet they would have their own interpretation of laws and policies in such a way that they can pin down ABS-CBN,
Okay.
even if it's technically down at the moment.
Okay, may nagtatanong dito, as a journalism professor, do you believe or did ABS-CBN really have shortcomings in terms of journalism?
Of course, all news media organizations have shortcomings. tayong lahat ay tao lamang na nagkakamali. Now, the question here is, did ABS-CBN own up to whatever mistakes they may have committed in the past, and did they rectify? Just to put on record, I was part of the team that did the media election coverage in 2004, 2007, and 2010. So those are 3 consecutive election cycles. So we studied TV Patrol, Bandila, as well as other news programs of other channels, including PTV4. There were weaknesses, definitely, way back in 2004, but we noticed a pattern of attempts to correct such shortcomings. One of them would be the lack of coverage of the party list election, which was, as we are all aware, now greatly improved. Now, ABS-CBN does that, as well as other news media organizations. But of course, the fundamental question remains: would the transgression or weaknesses of ABS-CBN or any news media organization be part of the issue in terms of its franchise? Because that wasn't the case with the other news media organizations.
Okay, last question ko, Professor. What lesson should we all learn? I mean, as media organizations, what lesson does this entire episode or this chapter teach us, or what should we learn?
What this teaches us is that sometimes congressional leaders would go out of bounds and would try to weaponize laws and the bureaucracy to serve their own interests. That's why we have to assert ourselves, we have to fight for our basic freedoms, and it has come to a point where we have to state the obvious insofar as basic tenets of journalism would be concerned. This is also a call to action for congressional leaders to research more on what the profession entails and why we say that this is indeed a press freedom issue. You cannot just sweep it under the rug and say that there is no chilling effect, that there is no culture of impunity. So we have to look at it as a systematic attack on the media. It's not just about ABS-CBN, it's not just about Rappler or even the Philippine Daily Inquirer.
May naalala lang ako, Prof. Last to the last na talaga.
Sure.
KBP. Kasi parang I never heard KBP in any of this. At the heat of the battle, where was KBP? Is KBP still relevant?
KBP, just to be fair, Junikda was one of the resource persons during the 12th and final public hearing. So, yes, sometimes KBP would be a bit quiet insofar as burning media issues are concerned, but is it still relevant? To some extent, it is relevant because its standards authority still exists. You still have the KBP broadcast code. But of course, as I always tell our friends at the KBP, there should be a more proactive stance regarding media monitoring. But just to be fair, it's not just KBP that does media monitoring. The Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility also do a good job in terms of calling out media for certain weaknesses. But of course, we need to further strengthen KBP.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Assistant Professor Danilo Arao. And please stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. And huwag kang pupunta sa Hong Kong na suot mo yung t-shirt na yan, ha? Baka makulong ka doon. Okay, thank you very much.
Really noted. Thank you very much.
Okay, and we will go for a quick break here on Agenda. Okay, we're back here on agenda. I hope I've got everything going right here. We just went for a quick break. After speaking with Professor Arao, let's now go to one of our other regular resource person here on agenda. We will be joined by former Ateneo School of Government Dean, Attorney Tony Laviña. Attorney, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Cito. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, I seem to have disconnected myself. I am very sorry. Sabi ko na nga ba, meron akong natanggal eh. Okay, let's try that again.
Okay, good
Okay.
morning, Cito. I'm glad to be here with you.
Okay, thank you for joining us. And rumor has it that the congressmen or congresswomen are going to vote on the ABS-CBN franchise sometime today or if not, early next week. Now, what have you learned from this entire episode of the ABS-CBN franchise as a lawyer and as a academician?
As an academician first,
Okay.
observing what's happening. And I guess my fearless forecast is it will be very difficult to get the votes for ABS-CBN to go to the next stage of getting a renewal. But hope springs eternal while decisions are not yet made.
Mhm.
And because, and this is my finding as an academician, politics trumps everything in this country. Trumps law, trumps decency, trumps national interest, trumps the interest of ordinary citizens that will be affected, both workers and audiences of ABS-CBN. But because also politics trumps everything, until they actually vote, things could change. But that's very clear, Cito. This is not.
Yeah.
This should not have been an issue at all. The renewal of ABS-CBN, if not for the president, I think we should call a spade a spade. You know what I mean? If the president signaled in any way that this can move forward, I think Congress, the House of Representatives, would have done this 3 years ago or 2 years. 2 years ago. Now, let me also very clear that if President Aquino did not seem to signal that he was displeased with ABS-CBN in his last 2 years of power, ABS-CBN could have also decided to just push through with the franchise. So see, this is not about just Duterte. This is also about the presidency in the Philippines, where the president, even in a decision that's supposed to be by Congress, can actually influence that decision.
Having said that, attorney, is it really just about presidents or is it possible na ginamit ng dahilan o plataforma ang mga pangulo? Kasi yes, President Duterte expressed his utter disgust and displeasure with ABS-CBN. But, he has also said the same things about the Ayalas and Pangilinan, and yet he was able to step back, correct himself, or apologize because he was prevailed upon by cooler, if not wiser heads. But in the ABS-CBN, hindi ba ito the accumulation of atraso, accumulation of anger, and of course, politics? And might I say, do you not suspect a business interest behind this? Is it all purely politics?
No, and I agree that this is an accumulation of atrasos, accumulation of enemies created through the years, and that's what makes it even more dangerous. Cito, being you coming from the media and your family coming from the media, that is a inherent part of media work to create enemies, to anger people in power. The pattern here, of course, from a media point of view, this is just a repetition of Rappler and of Inquirer, where there's also an accumulation of anger. I mean, and not just by the president, but several people who have through the years been affected by reportage. The business angle is interesting. I actually want to see how that works. In Rappler, that doesn't seem to be the case. In Inquirer, it seemed that might have been, but maybe not as big as we see. It has not moved there. But this one is big because if they are actually denied, they're talking about airwaves that are very popular already for the country. Also, who gets that? Can have a windfall. Tubong lugaw, we call it, right? I mean, because those airwaves are familiar to people already. So it's a perfect storm. Quite honestly.
Yeah, but getting the car doesn't mean you win the race. You still need the content. Now, getting into that realm of content, and I don't want to be misunderstood by viewers. No, wala po akong pinapanigan, wala akong inaaway. But does this serve notice to media and to society that perhaps we should review, change our perspective on what media is supposed to be, the role of media, the stance and tenor of media? Kasi I'll give you an example, attorney, no? May mga lumalapit sa akin. Alam mo, Cito, ibang-iba yung tatay mo. Yung tatay mo ang tapang. Yung tatay mo talagang bumabatikos. Ikaw, you're very spiritual, you're very cool, you're very positive, etc. And I always tell them, in my father's generation, they needed to do that. That is what was asked of them by circumstance and by the audience. In this generation where we are now slowly being eaten up by social media, the internet, is it possible that perhaps it is a time for a reset or a rethink of our role and our tenor as media?
The way I would answer that is that media is a big tent, and should allow for different tendencies. I think there's still space for hard-hitting columnists, broadcast journalists. There's a space also for more deliberative reporting, more deliberative engagement with the people that you cover in media. And because you pointed out, there are so many ways now of doing broadcast media or media. You have added the social media now to that mix. We have to not so much rethink media as itself or reset media at itself, but move forward. Move forward. That's why what we have are multimedia platforms, right? Where the broadcaster can also be the writer, and the writer can also go on TV or on video, and you have that. And I think there's that, and that's okay. I don't. That's not something that affects for me. In fact, that enhances media freedom. I mean, I think that really enhances me. That will improve media, but the transition would have challenges. I think we have to accept that the transition. I suppose younger people would have to be part of that, because they're the ones that's going to be in the future, and they have to develop their own ways of dealing with this new set of challenges.
Okay, now when you study the characters of leaders, the new president, boss of Channel 2, is a very composed, very polite, very rational individual compared to his predecessors na lahat naging boss ko. And sabi ko, ibang-iba. Ibang-iba yung dating, is very business-like.
Corporate, diba?
Very corporate. Yeah, I really like it.
All three of them, the three top executives, si Cory Vidiones and si Danet and si Ging Reyes was also gave do that. Diba? This business. We do this by the book. There are rules that we follow. We learn from it. Professor Arao, which I share. Of course, ABS-CBN has its faults. I mean, in its coverage, in the way it deals with things. My own pet peeve about ABS-CBN is when I turn on TV Patrol every night, right? First thing I see is a dead person. And if it's drugs, war against drugs, that's actually okay because it's public interest. But, a single person killed every day somewhere else, right? As you're heading, seems to be just to get people to watch it, right? That would be my pet peeve. But editorial independence is important, Cito. You know that. I mean,
but that leads me to my next question, attorney, because or Dean Lavinia, no, should the transition, because I think you and I are talking about the need for media to mature, along with its audience to mature in the Philippines. Now, itong maturation process, should it independently be left to media, or should there be a partner in government and in civil society to lead the way or to help them to go to this maturation? Kasi for the longest time, we've been talking about press freedom, independence, etc. And I'm all for that. My father fought for that. I continue to support that. But at the same time, marami na rin mga pagkakataon na medyo napapaisip ako and nasasabi kong medyo kailangan rendahan yung ibang tao dito sa media kasi lahat kami matatamaan sa kanilang kapabayaan.
Yan ang malungkot dyan, Cito. The sad part of it is that media actually already has that those processes, internal. Dapat kasi ideally, di ba, yung sinasabi natin, self-regulation, importante, no? Sa KBP, Philippine Press Institute. I actually chair the Philippine Press Council, which is a complaints body for print media. And we haven't had any cases, no, for I think 10 years na ako nag-chair niyan. I'm actually staying too long there. Parang wala urgency to replace me kasi wala namang cases. No? But see, it's underused. These processes are underused. So, kailangan i-reset yon ng media. I think i-reset yon. I think every media organization, and by the way, this disclosure, I'm in the board of Rappler. I mean, I was invited at the height of the attacks against Rappler, and I felt it was out of duty to do that. But even there in Rappler, I mean, I would always say that it's very important for us to make decisions. I mean, internally, a part of the editorial process are also decisions about law, decisions about impact on society, impact on individuals. Those things have to be dealt with at the editorial room. And I think many institutions already have that, but I'm not so sure how formal we are. I mean, ombudsman for every newspaper, for every TV station is actually really important. I mean, I think that's best practice, and I don't know how many of them would have that. Having said that, avenues for engagement with government and especially the public, and the public includes business, no? Because business is often on the receiving end of unflattering reports. No? I mean, some of which are justified, some of which are unfair, and even you even suspect that business rivals are the ones that are egging on these attacks. And honestly, I've seen through the years attacks on politicians that are clearly part of a PR plan by another politician or by another group of politicians. I mean, we're smart enough to know that. I've also been in government, and I knew when we were being attacked, legitimately actually, but behind the legitimacy are people with interest who want us to do something that they want us to do, and we have told them not to. And I've seen that. And so that engagement is very important, no? That sensitivity to what the public is saying, to what the people affected by your coverage is saying, and engagement with them is important. But constructive one. I think social media has created this monster of feedback that is useless, feedback that is mean, feedback that is, I write columns, and sometimes people feedback, and all this, what do they say? They say, pangit ka, dilawan ka, gago ka. Why will I respond to that, right? So what we need to do is to develop feedback mechanisms that are rational and exclude name calling, exclude mean. So I think that's necessary. Now, what's the role of government? It's tricky because government is so powerful. I think the role of government is to incentivize this transition for the better. And I wish that that's not going to happen under this government. I mean, I think that I hope that that can happen in the next administration. That there's incentivization of better coverage, of more responsible, as well as more impactful. I mean, a better impact of media coverage.
You know, talking to you and listening to you, it just dawned on me that the government engagement you were talking about, okay? Naisip ko lang parang wala na ba nagbago simula nung panahon ni Marcos hanggang ngayon in terms of the communication structure ng gobyerno. Yung pa rin yung spokesperson, yung pa rin yung TV4, yung pa rin yung press office. Pero wala akong nakita sa mga nakaraang presidente and up to now na there is no appointed designated cabinet member na ikaw ang trabaho mo isa lang. Makipag-usap ka kanila Beltran, kanila Viña, intindihin mo yung kanilang mga sinusulat, sinasabi para magka-isa-isa tayo at magkaintindihan. Parang is that part of the problem that the government never really bothered to change the system or the structure of engagement?
Yes, I think na-instrumentalize basically yung government media, nag-start siya kay Marcos but nagpatuloy rin siya. I mean, I think there were brief moments. I don't know if you would agree with me. I mean, in Cory's time and in FBR's time now, when you had a press secretary, di ba? Especially a press secretary that came from media. Na that role was at least informally done. I mean, that's one of the structural things I would call on the next president to do, to actually have a press secretary to unify this and to help in this transition of the press. I mean, I think that parang na-solidify kasi yung distinction na ginawa ni kay President Aquino, actually yan, di ba? More than even GMA. Kay GMA parang wala akong nakita structural na approaches to all instrumentalists, yung just responding to crisis after crisis. Kay President Aquino, because of the, di ba, division within that administration, na nahati, di ba, itong presidential spokesman, speeches, press conferences, what the president dito sa presidential spokesman, yung yung mga TV4, yung overall communications ng government doon naman sa PCOO, di ba? So I think
parang naging employment agency imbis na functioning
at hindi na siya unified na approach, di ba? So sa akin ang structure, we don't have to reinvent the wheel there, di ba? I think baka maganda at some point i-restore yung Office of the Press Secretary and defined as meron pa rin presidential spokesperson, di ba? Not really for the president but part of that operation where there's a real serious thinking about how to incent, as I said, not to regulate the press, not to pressure them, not to pay them off, di ba? But to incentivize them, di ba? I mean,
siguro kung tatanungin tayo, Dean Tony, ang sasabihin ko, total, 5-5 na lang naman yung mga title of secretary. Gumawa na rin kayong secretary for media relations.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dean Viña, and you thank you for your inputs today. Medyo iinit pa yung usapan namin kasi kasunod na natin sila Congressman Atienza and then Congressman Boying Remulla. I'm really interested what they have to say in all of this. Thank you very much, Dean.
Thank you, Dan Cito.
Okay, stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. That's attorney and Dean, former Dean Tony Viña. Okay, we will go for a quick break and when we return, nakasunod na po ang taong may buhay. Party List Representative, BUHAY Party-list Representative Lito Atienza. Susunod po. Okay, you're back here on Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250, as well as the Facebook platform of One News PH and also on YouTube. Nandito na po sa ating programa ang taong may buhay, laging makulay. Let's speak with Congressman Lito Atienza. Sir, good morning, sir.
Mabuhay at magandang umaga sa inyo, Cito.
Pabata kayo ng pabata. Ano ba iniinom ninyo, Congressman?
Sineseryoso itong mga nangyayari sa ating bansa.
Okay, Congressman, pag binabasa ko po yung mga storya regarding your performance in Congress, I would call you the captain. Oh, captain, my captain. Kasi parang pilitan mo raw tinitimon. You constantly have to guide the conversation or the hearings in Congress to the matter at hand regarding ABS-CBN franchise. Can you please share your experience and observation regarding this? Nakailan ba kayo? Naka-12 hearings ba kayo?
Well, at the hearing,
Oo.
12 hearings, 12 long, lengthy hearings.
Okay. Ngayon, ano po yung masasabi nyo sa mga pinagdaanan ninyo, kakatimon ng usapan dyan sa ABS-CBN franchise na yan?
Alam mo, una, ako yung nagpapasalamat sa iyo, sa iyong observation. At pakay ko lang naman, ituwid natin yung ating ginagawa para naman nasa loob tayo ng batas, sa loob tayo ng katarungan, katotohanan, at hindi yung kagustuhan lang ng ilan. Tayo Kongreso ng Pilipinas, so we have to be very careful, to be very, very responsible in the wielding of our power. Itong prangkisa ng ABS, talagang pangyarihan ng Kongreso yan. So, we have to be careful in our hearings. Yun ang aking paalala. Palagi ko naman nanggagaling yun sa karanasan ko. Ang Kongreso, once upon a time, nag-abuso. Tapos, ginawa ni Mr. Marcos, inabolish ang Congress. I don't want that to happen anymore. Not even again. That Congress should be abolished by anyone. But, if we show that we are not using our functions correctly, and we are bordering on irresponsibility, talaga ito, may-justify yan. So, again, pag-iingat. Galing na tayo dyan I came from a dark age of martial law, and I don't want our people to suffer once again under that kind of a system of a dictatorship. So, yung aking ginagawa sa Kongreso, always, is just to see to it. Tama yung ginagawa namin. Pag tama kasi yung ginagawa mo, masisan makarating ang usapan, but you can defend it with your life if necessary. Pero pag mali, mali, hindi maganda. Itong ABS franchise, nag-umpisa ito sa bintang, allegations ng ilang congressmen na meron talagang serious illegal acts ng ABS on the matter of citizenship of the owner, on the matter of the Lopez's having acquired the network illegally, unconstitutionally. Yan ang sabi ni Mr. Marcoleta. Constitutional issues have been raised against ABS. So, nakinig ako. So, umpisa talaga nakikinig ako. Baka naman meron talaga revelations si Mr. Marcoleta. I had to respect the seriousness of his allegations. Pero dumaan ang dalawang hearing, paikot-ikot sa issue nun, wala po naman siya naipakitang illegalidad na mga nangyari sa ABS. Ganon din po yung mga bintang ng iba. Tax evader daw ang ABS. Those are serious charges. So BIR had to be called. Sila nagsabi, wala pong tax evasion case sa ABS. And in fact, it was elicited out of the BIR for them to say, ABS has been responsible in the payment of taxes. And in fact, they're one of the biggest taxpayers of the land, number 65 overall. So therefore, yung mga allegation did not hold water, were not proven at all. 8 allegations. Inisa-isa yan. Pinaikot-ikot. Talagang hindi ayaw tanggapin ng mga nag-a-allege na they're not succeeding. So, we spend so much time and people's money. Every time you hold a hearing, you spend millions of pesos.
Yeah,
so,
but
wala na patunayan. At this point in time, ang aking inaasahan, let's be fair. Because hindi ito issue lamang ng ABS. Issue ito ng fairness, justice, defense of responsible media, and strengthening media in general. Ayokong humina ang media katulad ng gusto ng ilang congressmen. Siran dahil sila'y na-criticize. Ako naman ay kinikriticize din ng media for so many times. I was mayor for 9 years and I came under severe criticism many times. Pero I never thought of closing down media because kinikriticize niyo ako unfairly. Ito ganun lang, para bagang ang logic, you criticize a congresswoman or a congressman, we will have you closed down. That's not good. Politicians, even Congress, the franchise giver, should not meddle with the editorial policies, editorial content of any media operation. I cannot agree that dahil nagkamali kayo, all right, let's grant. In a few instances, unfair ang ABS. Hindi naman siguro closure ang parusa dyan. Meron mga penalties na pwedeng ibigay, ipataw, pero hindi closure.
Makasingit, makasingit lang, Congressman, ano? Kasi bigla akong natauhan sa sinabi mo eh. Yung sinasabi ho ninyo na about franchises, because we seem to have focused on Channel 2, on ABS-CBN franchise, but the power of Congress is on all franchises. Electric franchise, utilities, water utilities, etc. If this can happen to Channel 2, what statement are we giving? Because I'm just following your claim that after 12 hearings, none of the accusations were substantiated. We've wasted taxpayers' money. It amounts to no legal basis. And then now we are telling the world, if you come here to invest on a business that is dependent on a congressional franchise, mag-ingat ka. I mean, are the members of Congress not concerned with this? That kasi iniisip po natin yung term ninyo ngayon. But what about the succeeding term after 2022, after 27, etc.?
Correct. Cito, yan ang magiging masamang damaging and destructive effect kapag naganap, nangyari yung hindi tama, not on the basis of violations in the law, but on the opinions of some disgruntled politicians or the machinations of certain politicians. Yan ang ikinatatakot ko. The institution of media and the credibility of the nation will be affected if you can do that. Kung may napatunayang illegal, dapat tanggapin natin. If they have violated the Constitution, dapat talaga siraan. Hindi na dapat magpatuloy. Pero wala nga. Yan ang hirap sa problemang ito. They have not proven anything. And the regulatory officers of the government, like SEC, BIR, Department of Justice, Immigration, they've all cleared the management of ABS. Cleared
But
the officers.
But what about the failure of regulatory offices such as the NTC? I mean, wala naman po akong galit sa NTC, wala akong personal nakakilala sa NTC, but time and again when pag nag-i-interview ako, I discover na kung anuman allegation o akusasyon laban sa ABS-CBN, whatever faults ABS-CBN are being accused of, it would have been and should have been addressed by the NTC. What will congressmen like you do about this? Kasi parang sila yung nagkulang, ngayon paparusahan mo yung 11,000 employees, sisirain mo yung reputasyon ng bayan dahil merong ilan na nagkulang dyan sa NTC.
I agree with you 100%. Kung ang pagkukulang nasa regulatory agency, yun ang aming silipin. Constructively, we can restructure the same and redefine their functions. Tama yun. I agree with that. But kung nagkulang ang regulatory agency, we cannot punish the people for that. Ang concern ko, Cito, another major concern is that at the time of the pandemic, we are going to cause thousands of people to become jobless. Wala na hanap buhay, ginikita nila para sa pamilya nila. That's not a correct situation. What we should be doing now is to provide more jobs. Logic na, humanap kayo ibang trabaho, may isang senador yan ang sinabi.
Okay.
Senador, kung ikaw kaya tanggalan ng Senate seat mo, ano kaya feeling mo?
Nako, yun nga lang na madagdagan yung bilang ng senador sa Pilipinas. Nagwawala na yung ibang senador dyan eh. Pero maiba na. Nako, baka maagalit na naman sa akin yung mga tito ko dyan sa Senado. Final question ko na lang, Congressman Atienza. Are you confident that ABS-CBN will get its franchise? And if they don't, do they have other options?
Options, meron pa naman siguro ilan. All the way up to the Supreme Court if necessary, because how can you punish someone who has not been found guilty? Ang example ko rito meron ka dinimanda. Sinabi mo, ikaw nagnakaw. Ikaw ganito. Nagdilitis na, nagtatrial sa korte. Talagang binusisi yung allegation mo. The man was not found guilty. In fact, sabi ng mga otoridad, hindi po totoo yan. Sabi ng pulis, hindi po totoo yan. Therefore, I punish you. Total banishment forever. Hindi. That is not justice. So there are a few recourses, even if Congress does not grant. But the point is, mahirap na yan. At saka, ang ipaglalaban na natin dyan, masyadong mahirap mag-anak. Samantalang ngayon, nasa kaway pa namin. Ito yung pag ginamit namin ng tama, ang aming, they call it power. Ako hindi power. If we use our responsibility correctly, then there is no need for further elaboration that may ensue, that may happen if we are unfair and unjust and incorrect.
Okay. Yeah.
Kaya, ang aking paalala, huwag natin dagdagan ang hindi na natin nakita.
Okay,
You're imagining violations.
Congressman,
They were not proven.
yeah, pasensya ka na, Sir Lito, kasi medyo ubus na ako ng oras. Pero yung katanungan ko lang, sabi ni Dean Lavinia, he feels ABS-CBN won't be given its franchise. What is your forecast?
Ano sabi ni Prof. ni Dean?
Hindi makukuha ng ABS-CBN yung franchise.
Cito, you know me, I'm a straight talker.
Yes, sir.
Hindi na feeling ko. Ito lahat ito scripted. Lahat ito, it's all show. But the end, and ABS will be deprived of their franchise. Ang nakikita ko, nababasa ko. Ngayong malinaw yung 12 hearings nangyari, walang napatunayan. Yesterday, Speaker Cayetano spoke and gave his own summation. Pero meron siyang nilabas na ibang issue which was not even discussed during the hearing. Are we going to allow a media network, a giant network, to be also owning so many businesses? Sila nagkokontrol ng negosyo, sila nagkokontrol ng media. Hindi dapat payagan yan. Kung sabi ko, that's an entirely new issue that the Speaker is bringing out. That will influence a lot of congressmen. That was meant to influence the congressmen. So we will be deciding on the issue, on something, on the franchise, on an issue which was not even discussed, for or against. So I see the writings on the wall, it will not be given.
Okay. Thank you very much, Congressman Lito Atienza. Very sobering closing statement. Please continue to stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. God bless you, sir.
Ikaw din, Cito. Let's all survive. God
Okay. Thank you. And that's Congressman Lito Atienza. Medyo, ayun po, the writing is on the wall, quote unquote, that ABS-CBN may not get its franchise. We will now move to our last and final guest for this week. We, on the other side of the fence, so to speak, we will speak with Congressman Boying Remulla of the 7th District of Cavite here on agenda after a quick, ayun na pala, pinasok na. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Cito, at magandang umaga sa lahat ng nanonood at nakikinig sa atin.
Kailan ba tayo huling nagkita? Parang UP Village Park Boys pa nung huli kitang nakita.
Must be more than 35 years ago.
Oh my God. But anyway, just so people know, the Remullas and the Beltrans go a long way back. We were neighbors in UP Village. Yung tatay mo, tatay ko, parehong mahilig sa sabong. And now we are playing our roles in society. So I want to be fair with all sides. So Congressman Boying, the platform is yours. Kindly explain to our viewers why you have taken such a strong position on the ABS-CBN franchise.
Cito, I had to set the example to my colleagues not to be afraid of a very powerful conglomerate. Kasi alam mo, Cito, sa totoo lang, maraming natatakot sa ABS-CBN because they have destroyed people so many times throughout history. And Cito, I'm really willing to fight it out because this is the legacy that we have to leave to our people. Kinakailangan makita nila na hindi naman lahat ng tao naduduwag pagka malaki ang kalaban.
Hindi ka ba napapaisip kung na baka naman meron akong hindi nakikita because your own brother, the Governor John Vic of Cavite, ewan ko kung fake news yun o totoo ba yun, na parang nagsabi siyang, Kuyang, this ABS-CBN thing, press freedom is bigger than the Remullas, bigger than you, bigger than us. Sabi mo nga, you need to stand your ground. But do you ever get second thoughts that tama ba itong ginawa ko or sinusunog ko ba yung political career ko doing this?
Cito, I'm very happy with what I'm doing and I'm not afraid of the future. It's just that it's my turn now to tell our people that enough is enough. That these oligarchs cannot reign in our country forever and then put us in their mercy. Nakakaawa naman po ang taong bayan They would rather pay taxes to the NPA than to pay taxes to our government. Nakakalungkot po ang ABS-CBN.
Okay, now regarding all of that, let's focus on the hearings and the result of the hearings. Ano po ang na-determine ninyo as far as your position? Kasi magbobotohan daw kayo. Tuloy ba today or next week pa yung botohan ninyo?
Today.
Okay, now
That's why we had to adjourn the joint committee yesterday so that we could get the committee to meet, the franchise committee to meet on its own, because it was a committee before. Hindi naman pwedeng paghaluin, pagbotohan na. So today we will convene the franchise committee.
Okay, and then what will happen?
Actually, I don't know. I don't have the agenda. I'm just prepared to go there to cast my vote. If people will, I hope wala nang daldalan, botohan na lang.
Yeah.
I think enough has been said about the issue. And
but
people have to.
Yeah, but Boying, sabi kasi ni Congressman Atienza, nung natapos na kahapon yung mga hearing nyo, biglang gumawa ng summation si Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano. And parang he talked about ABS-CBN being a big conglomerate with so many business holdings. And sabi niya, parang naiba na yung direksyon ng pinag-uusapan. Is there a possibility that you won't be voting today and it will go into a second round into the 13th hearing, so to speak?
I don't think so. Tapos na eh. Actually, I was the one asking the committee na ituloy pa natin.
Okay.
May mga gusto pa kaming gustong i-erase pa sana. Kasi Cito, hindi pa lumalabas yung dokumento ng DBP. Kasi ayaw naman i-waive ng ABS-CBN yung mga debts na kinondone ng ating gobyerno para sa kanila. Alam mo, talagang nakakalungkot yan. Napakasakit yan sa Pilipino. Bilyon-bilyon po ang nawala sa taong bayan pagkat ayaw po ng Lopez magbayad ng utang. Kaya we wanted to continue with that until we got the DBP documents. Meron pang iba Cito. Hard to spell out each and every one, but that I remember DBP so clearly.
Okay, so your bone to pick right now is this unaddressed issue of loans unpaid by the Lopezes to DBP to float ABS-CBN. Bagamat nabasa ko na sa ibang columns, I think in particular yung kasama namin si Buchanco na nagsabing hindi kasalanan niya ng Lopezes, parang inikot-ikot yung loan na yan hanggang sa na devalue or whatever. But I'm also curious to find out. But what other reasons are you going to stand on when you cast your vote?
Well, Cito, nakita mo naman yung tax avoidance scheme nila. That is so unbecoming of a franchise holder. Binigyan ka na ng opportunity ng gobyerno gamitin mo ang patrimonial property of the state. You undertook to pay the proper taxes. Tapos, gagawa ka ng mga ganyang mechanism. Yung Big Dipper, Cito, napakasakit doon.
Yeah, pero
yung idea, Cito, yung idea ng PESA, meron kang 164 na tao na ang itatransfer mo sa kumpanyang yon ay 2.5, 2.7 billion a year. That is so reprehensible. Sabihin mo legal. Sabihin mo legal. Sige, sabihin mo legal. Pero kasi nahuhuli. Pag nahuli na yun, illegal na yan.
Yeah.
Kasi nga, Cito, that's money laundering.
Yeah, okay. Wait a minute. Kasi ikaw media ka rin. You may be a congressman, but media ka rin. Nagraradyo ka. I think DWIC ba yun o DCRH?
I go RH now every Saturday.
Oh, RH, di ba? So, naintindihan mo yung sitwasyon ko. I have to counter or to cite yung sinasabi naman ng iba. Now, yung sinasabi mong money laundering, tax evasion, etc., sinabi ng BIR, wala namang kasalanan. One of the highest taxpayers pa ang ABS-CBN. Parang ang nakikita ko, parang may mga problema dito. If I follow your trend of thought, the people who are dropping the ball are the regulatory agencies. If there's truth to your claim na money laundering, AMLA, tax evasion, BIR, yung tungkol sa violation of franchises, NTC, and yet nothing is coming out of Congress to rebuke these regulatory agencies?
Sito, that's the beauty of our system of government. Kasi nga,
Okay.
the job of Congress is oversight. We have to look over these agencies. We have to look at what these agencies are doing. And we know that the idea of regulatory capture is not just an idea. It has become so entrenched, and ABS-CBN is living proof of what regulatory capture means.
Okay,
Kaya
so
niya, no? Yung
yeah,
sabihin
please,
natin sa
go ahead.
BIR, no?
Oh.
Nagkaroon ng tax compromise. From 2.8 billion na dapat bayaran, naging 180 million. That's very alarming, Sito. NTC. Actually, yung pagsasarado ng ABS-CBN was really the litmus test. When the NTC gave them a cease and desist order, it should have been for everything, including, it was really for everything, including TV Plus, the digital channel, because I was able to read, examine the provisional authority by which ABS-CBN was able to broadcast on a digital platform. Pero, Sito, puro palusot pa rin ang lumabas nila. They falsified, I mean, they were attempting to falsify documents until they admitted hindi pa sila tapos sa pag-construct ng isang korporasyon na magiging black timer nila. In effect, Sito, they're black timing on their own sister company, which did not even have the permission of Congress to transfer the usufructory rights of ABS-CBN. Sito, talagang sobra tong regulatory capture. The BIR, the PESA, lahat yan. Talaga only Congress can do this. Kaya nga ginagawa namin. Walang ibang pwedeng gumawa ng aming ginagawa ngayon.
Okay, does this, kasi ang forecast ni Dean Viña, hindi makukuha ng ABS-CBN yung franchise. Ang forecast ni Lito Atienza, the writing is on the wall, hindi bibigay itong franchise kasi sarsuela lang itong mga hearing na ito. Now, my question, Boying, may mga lalabas bang matitinong batas out of this? Because I mean, if we not me kasi ano man ako I have to be neutral as the anchor here. But if ABS-CBN will be punished by not giving it its franchise, will the country or will the nation even at least benefit from laws that will correct the accusation?
Actually, Sito, meron na kaming batas na pinasa na actually addressing fiscal incentives. Even before the ABS-CBN hearings. Nahuli na namin ang kalokohan na nangyayari sa PESA even before ABS-CBN. And ang problema, may mga tao sa Senado na ayaw gawin yung dapat gawin tungkol dito. That is that's a problem with their lawmaking system. But the Oversight Committee can call the attention of government, of the Executive Department, about malpractices or practices that should not be there, that are very detrimental to the interests of our country.
Okay, I will give you that you are trying to correct the violations of law and franchise. Pero hindi ba kami dapat matakot sa mga pinagsasabi ng mga kasama mo? I don't know if you said it also. I mean, between friends, we can speak freely, I believe. Marami kang kasama na naglabas ng sama ng loob sa media na unfair treatment, pati si Congresswoman Janet Garin, although we are very civil and polite with each other, I was shocked kasi yung naglabas ng sama ng loob against media, should we be concerned that our members of Congress don't seem to understand that we are just doing our job when we call out mistakes or when we call out faults or when we criticize?
I have no problem with criticism from media, Cito. I have no problem with that. The problem really is, yung ano lang, I'll tell you about Janet Garin. No? Hindi namin siya maaawat sa kanyang personal na agenda. Pero I don't really agree with her that you should bring out your personal experiences because this is bigger than her. It's bigger than us. Diba? This is about the country. But just the same, no? It just shows how human we all are. There are people who are really hurt, and they brought it out, probably in the wrong forum. But that is beside the point. The point really is, ABS-CBN has already gone to practices which should not be there for big corporations in our country. Yung ginawa nila sa PESA, isa na yan. Yung ginawa nila na Amcara Broadcasting, binastos nila ang Kongreso, hindi sila humingi ng permiso, na gamitin yung ibang prangkisa. That is talagang blatant disregard for the laws that we pass. Pag ganito ng ganito at napakalaki nila at binaliwala nila yung mga batas ng bansa, sino pa ba ang tatawag ng pansin sa kanila? Di ba takot na nga lahat? Kailangan meron talaga manindigan.
Yeah, pero obviously ang sentimento wala namang kinakabahan sa Kongreso, walang natatakot sa ABS-CBN, or else none of this would be taking place. Now, the question is tama ba yung forecast, Congressman Remulla, no franchise for ABS-CBN, and or wala bang, kasi alam mo naman yung society natin, and I guess corporate culture, let's fix the problem if we can fix the problem. Let's work together. May resolution pa ba of issues, or is closure the only solution on the table?
Hindi pa kami tapos ito eh. After this, we will be looking at contempt proceedings. We will be looking at other investigations about the falsehoods that they did in the hearings. Hindi pa kami tapos. Kinakailangan talaga matuto tayong sumunod sa batas at gawin natin yung nararapat para sa ating bansa. It's the first time in history this is happening, Cito, and I'm happy I'm part of it.
Okay, and you can honestly say ito hindi because inutos ni presidente or because may personal na atraso sa inyo ang Channel 2 ang ABS-CBN.
Honestly, I can say that. I'm a lawyer, Cito. Pinag-aralan ko ang issues. Pinag-aralan ko yung issues. And whatever I spoke, I asked there and I spoke about, pinag-aralan ko, Cito. It's not a bias. It's just a calling to do the right thing.
Okay, well, I will respect that. And as the saying goes, we all live by our accomplishments and by our mistakes. And I hope that in this case, it is for the general good. And I hope you stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy. And I do wish that magkita naman tayo under more pleasant circumstance than COVID-19. God bless you, Congressman.
Thank you, Cito, and good morning to all. Maraming salamat po.
Okay, yan po si Congressman Boying Remulla of the 7th District of Cavite. I don't have to add anything to that conversation, and I thank the good Lord na kahit papano He restrained me from going into opinionating, editorializing, because I wanted you, our audience, to hear what our resource persons have to say and not what I think or what my opinion is, because that's not my job. From time to time, syempre, maglalabas din ako ng sentimento, but in this case, it is bigger than individuals. It is the greater good, the greater need. And thank you for joining us. God bless all of you. Please continue to pray. And I'd like to leave you with this last message. In everything, give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. Pinadala yan ng dati kong kapitbahay na si Joe Osca from 1 Thessalonians 5:18. Give thanks no matter what our situation is, and have gratitude in your heart. God bless all of you. Please join us next week here on Agenda.